What Apple's new App Store policy means for Netflix, Spotify, others. Apple Wednesday announced that it will allow developers of Reader apps to include a direct link to their own website for users to set up and manage their accounts. In a major change in its app policy, Apple Wednesday announced that it will allow developers of Reader apps to include a direct link to their own website for users to set up and manage their accounts. The concession comes amid a global pressure that Apple is facing for its restrictive rules. A look at why the development is significant and how it impacts Apple developers and users. Why has Apple made this change in policy for Readers apps? Apple said it has made the change following the conclusion of an investigation by Japan Fair Trade Commission which was looking into App Store practices. Apple's agreement with JFTC would now allow developers of Reader apps to include in-app links to their website for users to set up or manage their accounts. Apple said while the agreement was with the JFTC, it was implementing the policy globally. In a statement, Apple explained the change in stance further because developers of Reader apps do not offer in-app digital goods and services for purchase. Apple agreed with JFTC to let developers of these apps share a single link to their website to help users set up and manage their account. What are Reader apps? Apple has in its statement clarified that Reader apps include all apps which provides previously purchased content or content subscription for digital magazines, newspapers, books, audio, music and video. This means that apps like Netflix, Spotify, Disney Plus, etc. will be covered. These apps can now include an in-app link for users to purchase a paid account. This will also mean developers can avoid the 15-30% developers commission fee that Apple was charging from them. So can developers now take regular payments inside the app? Apple has given only some leeway. First, this policy will only come into effect in early 2022. Further, the iPhone maker will update its guideline and review process to make sure users of Reader apps continue to have safe experience on the App Store. The statement adds while in-app purchase through the App Store commerce system remains the safest and most trusted payment methods for users, Apple will also help developers of Reader apps protect users when they link them to the external website to make purchases. So while Spotify can now let users set up their premium account from the iOS app itself without having to rely on Apple's payment system for gaming apps such as Battlegrounds, Mobile India, which offer better options for in-app purchases, nothing really changes. In order to allow in-app purchases, app developers still need to rely on Apple's payment systems. They cannot provide external links for in-app purchases. Why is this change significant for app developers? Apple has long been accused of restricting how developers can charge payments and subscription from the users. The existing system means that iOS app developers need to use Apple's official payment system in order to charge a subscription or payment from the users. That is because Apple charges a commission from developers ranging from 15 to 30%. Big app names such as Spotify and Epic Games, creator of Fortnite, have called these rules unfair. In 2019, Spotify had filed a case against Apple, arguing that the commission tax was unfair and anti-competitive. Earlier in April this year, European Commission's Executive Director Margaret Vestager had posted on Twitter that EU's preliminary findings against Apple's indicate that it was in violation of anti-competitive practices. Vestager had written, Apple is in breach of European Union competition law. Apple Music competes with other music streaming services, but Apple charges high commission fees on rivals in the App Store and forbids them to inform of alternative subscription options. Consumers losing out. The new change is giving some concessions to media companies, wherein they can at least allow their paying customers to set up accounts from the iOS app itself and have an option to bypass Apple's payment system. For example, if you wanted to buy the subscription to the Indian Express e-paper, it is not possible via the iOS app. But with the new policy, the app can introduce a link to an outside payment at the time of setting up the account where you can pay for the e-paper. How have the media companies reacted? Spotify CEO and founder Daniel Ek called Apple's new App Store policy a step in the right direction while adding it was not enough. This is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't solve the problem. App developers want clear, fair rules that apply to all apps. Our goal is to restore competition once and for all, not arbitrary, self-serving step at a time. We will continue to push for real solution. The company's chief legal officer and head of global affairs, Horacio Guterres, also tweeted saying Apple selective tweaks to its App Store rules are welcome, but they don't go far enough. As pointed out, Spotify has filed a complaint before the European Commission for Apple's alleged anti-competitive practices. Regarding the 30% commission, Spotify says the charge is unfair. Given that Apple also has Apple Music which pays no such commission, Spotify even has a dedicated website for the same. Time to Play Fair, where it lists out the arguments against the Cupertino-based technology giant. Spotify says Apple Music has an unfair advantage and that Apple is abusing their positions as both referee and player in the world of audio streaming. Spotify also says that Apple's restrictive policies also means that by rejecting Apple's in-app payment system, they have also been limited from sharing deals and promotions with their users. The website states, in fact, if we don't pay the tax, we can't even say get premium or provide helpful hints on how, when, where you can upgrade. Either option creates a poor experience for our customers, making it often impossible for them to get the audio content they want, the way they want it, and with the ease they expect from a company like Spotify. Meanwhile, Epic Games founder Tim Sweeney called the change a special deal for Reader's app. Epic Games had filed a lawsuit against both Apple and Google for their practices related to payments. Epic Games' popular game Fortnite has pulled down from the App Store when the company implemented changes to add their own payment system which bypassed Apple's in-app purchase system. Sweeney wrote, in Apple's carefully worded statement on safety, it's hard to discern the rationale that this is safe while Fortnite accepting direct payments remain unsafe. Even more so if Apple deems Roblox a game from 2006 to 2021 that an experienced mid-trial or reader app. He added that Apple should open up iOS on the basis of hardware, stores, payments and services, each competing individually on their merits. Instead, they are running a literally day by day recalculation of divide and conquer in hopes of getting away with most of their tying practices. How have regulators dealt with Apple's Google tax on app developers? Both Apple and Google are under more scrutiny from government and regulators across the world on how they govern their platforms and policies around app developers' payment. In India, too, app developers have called the 30% tax as unfair. Payments Vijay Shekhar Sharma has termed it Lagan. But perhaps the biggest victory for app developers has come from South Korea, where the government has passed a bill in the Telecommunications Business Act under which developers will be able to select which payment systems they prefer for in-app purchases. This will effectively allow them to bypass the tax imposed by both Apple and Google. Reacting to the law, Apple said that move would decrease trust in App Store purchases. According to CNBC, an Apple spokesperson said the bill put users who purchase digital goods from other sources at risk of fraud, undermine their privacy protection, make it difficult to manage their purchases, and features like Ask to Buy and parental controls will become less effective. A Google spokesperson said that Google Play provides far more than payment processing, and our services help keep Android free, giving developers the tools and global platform to access billions of consumers around the world. Just as it costs developers money to build an app, it costs us money to build and maintain an operating system and app store. We will reflect on how to comply with this law while maintaining a model that supports a high quality operating system and app store, and we shall share more in the coming weeks. In India, an antitrust case has been filed against Apple over 30% commission it charges for all in-app purchases. As reported by Reuters, the case filed by non-profit Together We Fight Society based in Rajasthan is being investigated by the Competition Commission of India (CCI). Thank you.